Welcome, Reanimated fans, to this week's episode of Reanimated. So, I am here, a little bit sleepy still, in Brooklyn. I'm H.A. Conrad, here with my intrepid co-host, Stuart Tiffin. How are you?
Yo, I'm also, I'm good. I'm great. And it's a great day for zombies.
We are going to be chatting about Rampant, which was the other South Korean zombie project going on from is it the actual director of Train to Busan or the studio? Okay, so it's the studio that did Train to Busan. The interesting thing is that this is coming out or came out and was being made at the same time as Kingdom, and I have a lot of things and thoughts to talk about related to that. But before we get underway, we have a couple of news items. Do you want to jump into the first one?
Numero uno. Oh, yeah. Fear the Walking Dead now has a premiere date. I think that was recently published. It's going to be June 2nd. That gives us enough time to watch all of this season of The Walking Dead, season 9, and then all of Game of Thrones. And then, I don't know, there's probably still a couple of weeks in there before Fear the Walking Dead starts. I feel like sometimes it started earlier in the year, but I'm not complaining. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. And definitely gives us some time to talk about some of these other things. We also saw that there was another film coming out, another zombie film with, surprise, surprise, Dolph Lundgren, who honestly I have not heard of anything that he's been in for a long time. And he is definitely at his Dolphist, at least in this trailer. So
pretty Dolphy, yeah, for sure.
I'll have to say this does not look great to me personally, but I guess we're gonna have to review it. But it is called Dead Trigger. So maybe at some point, if we're bored, we will decide to review that one.
I'll see anything that Dolph Lundgren is in after Red Scorpion and also Universal Soldier. Like, he earned my loyalty in those two films back in the 80s and 90s.
Okay, let's stress upon back in the 80s and 90s, and there's some folks that, can definitely get, I am totally loyal to them. He's not one of them.
Well, I think he's like a fine wine. It's just
maybe. I am more excited to see the Jim Jarmusch film coming out because they keep announcing more and more people on the cast. Tom Waits, Bill Murray, who else is it? Iggy Pop are all going to be making appearances in his upcoming zombie film. So I am really excited to see whatever this is. I think it's going to be really strange.
I want to just go through some more of this list of people too, real quick.
It's called The Dead Don't Die, by the way. So, and it's packed full of people. So I just have no idea what this is going to be like. But if you ever saw, are you a Jim Jarmusch fan? Did you ever see Coffee and Cigarettes or yeah, okay.
I don't think I am a Jim Jarmusch fan. I don't know that I've ever seen anything he's done. But I'm excited about this, although they're also packing so many celebrities into it that it might just be ridiculous and unwieldy. But
well, this was kind of the thing that he does with his film. So there's a lot of people that are in, but not necessarily like a massive part of the story, and that I think that's probably what this is going to be like, because you do have like a crazy lineup. So you want to dive into the others? I
mean, I don't think this list is even complete. But so Bill Murray, Adam Driver, Selena Gomez, Chloe Sevigny, Tilda Swinton, Danny Glover, just right there. That's amazing. That list of 6 people. Caleb Landry Jones. I don't know who that is.
Steve Buscemi.
Rosie Perez and Steve Buscemi. Tom Waits.
Carol Kane.
Iggy Pop and the RZA. And then Childish Gambino is also going to be in this.
Oh, really?
It keeps going and going.
Well, anyway, I feel like this is exciting, so I'm not going to get unexcited about it until it's bad. But in any case, well, in any case, I'm excited about this. So we shall see once it's out. Yeah. But TBD, the list just keeps getting longer on this one. But I wanted to we don't have all that many news items today to talk about, but I wanted to sort of get jumping into our film that we're talking about today, because I have a lot of thoughts. I think you probably do too.
I got thoughts.
Okay, so what we're talking about, as I mentioned, is Rampant. It is now available to rent on Amazon. And we had heard about this. I feel like I almost heard about this before I heard about Kingdom.
Well, it did come out last year.
Right, but it wasn't available though to us.
No, but it did box. It came out the same weekend as Crazy Rich Asians in South Korea. So that was a
Right.
long while back since that's already
But
out on
for
DVD.
but for us, like we didn't have access to this
Yeah,
at
but I don't
least.
feel like I think you're right that we also didn't hear about this until early this year.
Right. So it was directed by Kim Sun Hoon, and yeah, so I guess October 25th, 2018 was when it was released or had like a wider release. Um, but in any case, I heard about this, and I admit when I first heard about Kingdom, I actually confused these two projects because they're both period pieces and period zombie pieces in like kind, and I have to say kind of somewhat similar storylines.
Yeah.
Like so similar that you almost get the sense that somebody like heard about one or the other of these projects and decided, oh wait, that sounds like a great idea. Let me steal all of these ideas and make it mine. This is not a series, obviously; it's a feature film, so a little bit different from Kingdom. But I have to admit, I really enjoyed this, and I almost felt like in some cases it was a little bit more successful than Kingdom because it was kind of compressed into just one storyline. It is a longer film. It is about 2 hours long running time, but it is beautiful the way that it was shot, and I feel like especially some of the aerial shots, were just so awesome. There were also the costuming here was similar. So you're seeing many hats and many robes and just a lot of, but not quite so many costume changes within the characters that are there. They kind of stay in their own outfits for most of the whole time. So a little and less, and it felt a little bit less massive in terms of the number of extras. Like I definitely saw in terms of the infected here, there were definitely people that were appearing more than once. I don't know if you saw that too, Stuart.
Oh well, that one Dutch zombie.
Yeah, that one Dutch zombie just couldn't go away.
He was like a star zombie, though. He did eventually get killed.
No, I'm not. I wasn't talking about him, but I'm just talking about some of the other. There was definitely some reusable, which you have to do it with this kind of like crazy sort of mass crowd zombie thing going on. But I felt like these both had similar feels to it. I but I enjoyed both thoroughly, so I'm not complaining about either of them. I'm glad that they both exist. It's just really odd for them to be so close together, I guess, and so similar in storyline.
Yeah, I'm honestly coming at this from a different perspective, wherein I felt that this was a lot weaker than Kingdom. I felt like the storytelling was less clear. It had a lot of fat on it still that should have been trimmed out. It should not have been a 2-hour film. I think this should have been 90 minutes at best. And I think there were a lot of confusing elements to the storytelling. And some of this might have just been stuff that was getting left out in context and translation, but like, not really understanding who the Crown Prince was until he had already killed himself, and like they were like, oh, the Crown Prince just killed himself. Like, oh, that's who that was. Okay. And then Gang Lim shows up. And again, you're like, who is this guy? They don't introduce people in a way that and maybe this is cultural, I don't know it, but I would find myself wondering who people were for the first several minutes that they were on screen. And I also did not think that the sets were as good as in Kingdom. I didn't think that the visuals were, I mean, yes, you had the costuming was really similar and good, but I didn't think that the sets were as well dressed and developed. There were fewer sets, but this film also concentrates on just a few different locations, which is good, I think. You don't want to be going all over the place. Most of the action takes place in the town of Jemelpo, and then in the capital, and then there's some boat stuff. But between those two locations, I think it does do a good job of telling the story in like with a good concentration of storytelling in those two areas. And it's got Train to Busan extras, and I mean the zombies are really, really good, and there's really, really good swordplay. There's great choreography, and Gang Lim has this amazing Qing Dynasty broadsword, which I love so much, until Kim gets it, and then it's a little more even badass. Either way, it was a decent story. I just don't think that if we're comparing the two, I think Kingdom comes out on top for me. That's where I'm at.
Well, I mean, look, I definitely had a much bigger budget, I think, without question. I'd have to look at that, but that wouldn't shock me, just given the number of people and the sets and everything like that.
This film apparently had a $15 million equivalent budget.
Right.
Which, if I think Kingdom at 6 episodes was over a million per episode, but I think they came out below 10 million.
All right. Well, I kind of disagree with you on some points, but I do feel like the stories are so similar that it is very strange. Like all of the political intrigue is almost exactly the same. You've got like the advisor to the king basically undermining everything and running things behind the scenes, who wants to take over power. You've got the sort of the not, well, I guess in this case he isn't quite the crown prince, but he's like the second prince, but a similar thing because it's like in Kingdom it's that the sort of the bastard child prince, I guess, if you want to call it that. You just have like such similar storylines that it's really, to me, it's very unusual that these things would be out so close to each other.
It is curious. There's also the princess element, but in this
Right.
in this story, she's not an antagonist. She's not like by marriage one of the bad clan. In fact, Kim, the main antagonist, the main bad guy, doesn't have any family, which is probably why he is free to be even worse, even more of a jerk
Right.
than Chancellor Cho in
Right.
Kingdom.
Right. And then you've got the relationship between Ganglim and his like man of arms or whatever
That
you
is
call him.
terrible. That's one
It
of the
is
things.
really bad.
Okay, I'm
It's
glad
really
that you
bad.
felt that too.
No, compared to Kingdom, yeah, no, this was stupid. This was like it was a horrible caricature, which I really disliked. And like so that really bothered me a lot. You also had your merry band of rebels in this, which was pretty much the same idea for the most part, and the whole evolution of the prince. In this case, he's it's the same. He's not quite as noble, I would say, as the other prince, in terms from the get go, but because all he really wants to do is hang out with ladies in Qing, but he does the whole thing where he makes promises to the people, and that becomes the main theme of this film, and it's a very similar storyline.
It's pretty frustrating to watch him not grow at the same rate
Right.
as the Crown Prince in Kingdom, though, because even at an hour and 38 minutes into this film, his like advisors, these rebels, are still trying to persuade him to take responsibility and become a leader. And I'm honestly just
Right.
like, all right, we've had this conversation 3 more times during this movie, and why is he not getting the point? And why I feel like we're just beating a dead horse with the storyline. So that was part of why I was like, oh, okay, let's keep moving. So that story arc, that development was really slow
Well,
for me.
I think they were trying to get sort of hit the point home, and I agree with you. It was at some point like beating a dead horse. That people who want to be king are not the people who should be in power. And that's, I think, where they were going with that. I kind of think that the epic storyline with the 2 hours, like trimming certain pieces of fat, I agree with you. But I did like some of the big set pieces. I did like a lot of the choreography, especially the one specifically I really liked. That it didn't have the really awesome end of the board zombie equation that Kingdom did. Was the jail scene.
Oh yeah,
That was very cool how they managed that, just in the space that they had.
that was cool. There was almost like Jackie Chan levels of using the set to get where you want to get in the storytelling. I like that.
Yeah, I liked that a lot. I will say I also thought that the makeup was better for the zombies in this than it was in Kingdom. Or you got to
Yeah.
see them a lot more, like, so I felt like a lot in Kingdom, we would see them, and I definitely like the actors who were doing that, and they're probably a lot of the same actors if we're being honest, had like were their sort of body movements and jerkiness and just all that stuff that's like, oh, that person is definitely not right. That stuff was they did a lot more sort of close-up shots of zombies in this than they did in Kingdom. Like they were on them for longer. They especially did the whole, with a couple of the women zombies in this, they really were like into that in this particular film, once with the concubine and once with the dancer. They were not as brutal in terms of the children. There is like a scene that that
It
I was
starts
like,
with a guy eating his
well,
kid.
it starts right at the beginning, but they don't actually show it, thank goodness, because I was like, oh God, please don't show that. And I was like,
still.
I was thinking about you when that opened. I was like, oh no, Stuart's going to be very unhappy with this film.
I mean, I'm glad that they didn't show it explicitly, but the guy turns into a zombie and there's a baby in bed next to him, like crawling
it's
around.
bad.
And you're
It's
like,
horrible.
This is bad. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So, but overall, I mean, I just liked this piece. I thought that, other than the relationship between Gang Lim and his guy, that was just over the top and horrible. And they tried to make it a humorous relationship and like, oh, they really care about each other. But I feel like Kingdom got that relationship a little bit, like they got that better and made it less comical.
Yeah.
And like there's still like definitely in terms of a power differential, it's there, but it's not. You never get the sense in Kingdom, like, because his guy is basically like his bodyguard and also this man of arms, and in this case, he's just like, it's just terrible.
It's really bad. He's like a clown. That's what I kept referring to. In my notes.
He was a little bit. He was more of like the magistrate type role in this than. So,
but with none of the weight
behind
like it in storytelling, and so with Kingdom, there's less emphasis on the Crown Prince being a born martial artist or like this amazing fighter. That does kind of become clear throughout when he's like doesn't shy away from fights and he's definitely gets stuck in. But it does definitely seems like the bodyguard is really there to do a job, which is keep this guy safe, and he needs to be there. But in the case of Prince Ganglim, he is like the world's best martial artist. At least that's how he's even billed in some of the promotional text about this film. And he can do like these amazing spins. There's a lot of like on ropes or on wires sort of stuff going on in the combat. He's an amazing fighter, and honestly, that's some of my favorite stuff from this film is watching that guy fight. It's pretty cool. So that relationship between those two, those parallels, definitely doesn't match. Mu Young is way better than Hak-Soo. I did not shed a nary a tear when Hak-Soo was killed, even though we were supposed to. I was just like, no, good riddance.
I almost wish that some of the like, I kind of feel like with and and I think that's why Kingdom, in my opinion, like worked slightly better as like this epic thing, is that they had a little bit more space and time to flesh out some of these storylines.
Sure, I mean we're talking 6 hours of storytelling.
Like 6 hours versus 2. It's an epic storyline. I think it's very hard to get more than somewhat caricatures. I don't want to say caricatures, but it's hard to get like below like the superficial surface.
I think you're being too generous.
Well, but in terms of the action scenes, I really did love those, and maybe that's part of why I'm feeling a little bit more positive toward it.
Yeah.
Than probably I should.
I think if I hadn't seen Kingdom, I would be all about this film. I'd probably be.
But Kingdom it's epic. It's epic. But it is kind of like, I tried to actually find out, if there was any discussion about this, the fact that they had such similar things.
There's nothing out there, I know.
Nothing out there at all, which is really weird. The only thing not even like in terms of like things going on, the only thing I was really able to find out was that the Crown Prince, Leon, is he was originally supposed to be played by another actor, who unfortunately had died in a traffic collision before this. That was all I was able to find when trying to find out things about Kingdom, which makes no sense, because they're not even related. But it's like, it's just kind of weird to me. I mean, I think it's great that all this stuff is going on in South Korea, but these things were just so similar.
Yeah, and this film did really well. It beat out. It had a really good opening weekend because it came out the same time as Crazy Rich Asians is an American film, so that they're probably apples and oranges. But it beat that film out at release. A couple of these plot issues though that I just want to talk to you about real quick.
Oh, there's so many. So, okay, go ahead.
Crown Prince, the original Crown Prince, the one who kills himself, he is leading the rebels to overthrow the existing government, his father, basically.
Yep.
To make a stronger Joseon, which would not be held under the thumb of the Qing dynasty.
Right.
Right. So that's
and
his
also,
mission.
but also similar plot line. The people are hungry. We know this because of one mention of potatoes, and oddly enough, they also have a mention of beef jerky in this film as well.
Right,
It's
I
like
did
really
notice that.
weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, like, so kind of a similar storyline on that, though you do have like a member of royalty, in this case, the crown prince, acting on behalf of the people, which wasn't, we saw that develop really in the kingdom as opposed to being there off the bat. And so that was a little bit weird. Like he basically sacrifices himself so that his merry band of rebels is not killed, though.
Which you don't really know if that's going to be honored or not when he does
Right.
it. It's kind of a crazy
Right.
decision on his part. So that's his whole thing, right? But he does send a letter to his brother Ganglim, who is in Qing, who is a political prisoner, is my understanding. That's why he lives there. But he doesn't seem like a political prisoner, because I think as soon as his brother is dead and he gets this letter, he's like, hey, by the way, Chinese guys, can I leave? And they're like, okay, cool. See you soon.
Sure.
Because he loves the Qing dynasty. And this is
Yeah.
one of these areas where this story doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So
Well, and it's also he references trying to get his brother to come there many times,
and
like,
everybody he talks to, he wants them to come back with him, right?
and they talk about Qing a lot. They talk about the food, the women, just
Yep.
everything,
Yep.
all the time, and it's kind of like, well, like it's just so strange to me.
He says he speaks more fluently in Mandarin than he does in his own language to
Right.
someone. He's just not winning any points with the the folks that he's talking to about this in Korea.
Right.
So Ganglim is all about, like, I just need to get my sister-in-law and bring her back to Qing. That's my entire mission. That's the only reason he's there. And that's like the only core mission that he really adheres to, except that it does grow over time. So that's him. He is not going to help out his brother's desire to get rid of the Qing influence over Joseon. So then you've got Chancellor Kim, who is our Chancellor Cho surrogate analog, and he also wants to take over the kingdom from the king, who is weak and not a good king. He constantly gets accused of being a bad king, which is kind of funny to see him react to that.
Yep.
So Kim wants to take over. The way he wants to do that is to decimate the countryside with a zombie plague, because it's his doing, and then start from scratch with nobody. And he does this in front of the Qing diplomats. Like he wants to also get out from under the Qing dynasty, but the way he expects to do this is by killing off everybody in the kingdom and then starting from scratch. Or
But who are you starting from scratch with is the question.
Well,
I also think that the Dutch have an awful lot to answer for here. Like that's a big weird plot hole too. Like they kind of know, like the whole play gets started because the rebels know about this boat which has some gunpowder and a lot of weapons, which was supposed to outfit the rebels, and like they're keeping some zombie dude locked up in a little cell on the ship. So, and it's not even like it's a mystery about what's going on with him, because the Dutch trader is like, the Dutch captain of the ship is like, even says, oh yeah, he'll probably be a demon by nightfall. Like, why are you keeping him then? Like, I don't. So did you get a sense of why? Because it was very strange, and that guy never went away.
He finally dies, I think, at dawn, the fight at the palace. But yeah,
but
that's like weeks later, obviously.
Right.
Now, I don't know why the guy didn't kill him. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But he wasn't, at the same time, he wasn't saying, oh, by the way, please take this zombie and weaponize him. He was saying, like, oh no, he needs to be kept in a cage. This is bad. So
right, but my point is, it's like, I don't know, it just felt like just a very strange thing to have on a boat.
Yeah, it was curious. I guess I didn't question it as much, but it's worth wondering why he hadn't just.
And the dude was begging to be killed.
Yeah.
Too. He wasn't even like telling them to, he's like, just kill me already. So, yeah. I don't understand that part. And I don't understand. So basically, like, once the countryside is clean, what do you think what would he be ruling, though?
That's the question. I don't really get his plan. But then he also doesn't seem to have any problem with killing all of his allies. Like, by the end of the film, he has literally killed everybody who he was going to rule with. like so he doesn't seem like a very realistic faction leader, because why would anybody be loyal to him? He kills his own people all the time, and so that he's too evil, and then by the end of the film, when he gets bitten, he cuts off his arm, he throws a bunch of yellow stuff on it and then eats some of that yellow stuff. I'm not sure what that was supposed to be, but then he becomes like this super villain.
Almost like a super zombie.
And this is to set up the fact that him and Prince Gangnam will have a fight on the roof, which is like it takes it out of the genre to a great extent. But I mean, there's still zombies around, but it does a little bit to me defeat it takes it out of the genre and removes some of my suspension of disbelief.
Well, and then that's the other thing, is that once again we've got sort of different rates of infection, and they kind of try to explain it. Like, for example, when what is the name of the main one of the members of their group, the first guy that gets bitten, of the rebels, what is his name?
Well, Mambo.
Mambo is who I'm thinking of.
The woodcutter.
So basically, he makes a comment that he got bitten near the neck, so it would be turning really soon.
That's the other guy. That's Park Yul. That's the head of the rebels, because Mambo gets bitten in front of everybody, and everybody sees him get bitten, and so he doesn't come into the final throne room. But then the other guy has already been bitten and doesn't tell anybody until they're all inside. I'm like, well,
right. But again, like the rate of sort of infection and turning, it changes, and I guess just depends on who it is and what do you want to do with them in the storyline. Because Mambo turns really fast, and then this guy who is supposedly bitten so that he'll turn fast has hours and hours apparently to kill before that happens.
To hit the drum.
And then, to hit the drum. And then the war chancellor, he got bitten on the hand, but he's like going crazy for days, and then turns into super zombie, which again, I don't fully understand that decision. And I agree with you. I think that this changes the whole tone of the film, because he becomes something other than what the others are, and I found that to be kind of weird and jarring and inexplicable.
It goes into Resident Evil territory a little bit.
Yeah,
right? It's like, the T virus has altered because it was in contact with yellow powder.
Yeah, I guess so.
It is curious. And then so finally, my final gripe, I think, is in that last fight scene, the archer lady, who is Ganglim's main love interest. She is the analog for CLB from Kingdom, except she's not a nurse. She's just a badass. She's a badass peasant.
I like that decision, though. That was pretty cool.
Okay.
But not in this case. This was a little nuts. I agree with you. I have a feeling I know what you're going to talk about.
Well, yeah. So the problem that I have with the suspension of disbelief, again, is that she's like 300 yards away from where this guy is fighting on the roof. There's fire everywhere. When we see the thing from her perspective, I cannot see what she's shooting at, but every so often we'll get a reaction shot of her face where she's like, oh. And like, you're supposed to think that she is following all the action on the roof, and every so often she'll fire an arrow, and unerringly, a very helpful arrow. The first one misses, the second one hits, but it's just like, it's like a weird addition to the scene that she's like helping somehow from 3 football fields away, and you're like, I don't know, man, it just felt weird, and I didn't love it. Yeah,
I almost felt like there were scenes missing or shots missing, and they just decided to fill in with these reaction shots on her end. I do feel like some of the things that you're disliking about it is in the tradition of like some of these epic films that, they are supposed to be a little bit over the top.
Yeah.
And crazy, but I feel like this went a bit of a step too far because they weren't adhering to that from the beginning. It just kind of gets like weirder and wilder, and things are happening, especially toward the end in that final like crazy battle between him and the war chancellor, that I was like, I feel almost like these are 2 different films from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Because I almost feel like you have to decide what kind of film you're going to be. And maybe that was a little bit of their over-the-top relationship between him and Haksu. I just feel like this, they almost couldn't decide what kind of film they wanted to be on that point, and so got muddied toward the end.
Well, they do keep just raising the ante, and this is the ultimate result of that, right? Like,
right.
You if you're gonna keep making Gangnam be able to do bigger flips with his sword,
right,
eventually you're gonna need something to respond to that.
And though I have to say, I did love that sword play. I thought that was so much fun throughout it. I also
the scene
really
where
liked...
he's fighting his way out of the when the king turns, that dancer scene when he fights his way off of that
so
dance
great.
floor.
It was so great.
But it also
that
becomes
whole
clear.
Scene...
It also becomes clear that he cannot be stopped by zombies. So he does need something better or bigger than zombies.
That's true.
Because he is unstoppable, and he's doing this he's protecting the princess behind him while he's doing it. He's like, he carves his way through 50 zombies without getting touched, and these are like jumping at him, not even slow shamblers.
Yeah. I actually really like that scene. And in general, I was going to say that the whole dance scene was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's good.
I loved the choreography. I loved the aerial shots. I loved that, the build up to that scene was pretty cool. Especially when you see, we see what happens in is it the house with the concubines that all this is starting to like when the Dutch zombie makes his like fifth appearance, and then they become the horde that takes out get sort of like, I would say they're the party crashers of the king's big party there.
They look like royalty or nobles, but I don't know who these people are, and like the fact that they do start pouring out of this one house is confusing to me too. I was confused a lot during this film, just because I don't feel like there's a lot of context provided.
I think some of this was a like a problem with the subtitles / translation. I think we missed a lot. That was my sense. In terms of, like trying to get context. Like I feel like there was a lot of stuff left out that was probably there, but we just didn't see it because we can't understand the language. So, and the subtitles weren't entirely on point, I think. Because I'd agree with you on certain points, but there was also a lot in this film that was conveyed with, more physical acting, I think, as
like
well.
Haksu.
Yeah, well, he was the worst in terms of that kind of thing. But there was a lot that went on between the war chancellor, even with the princess, with the rebels. So I feel like this is a little bit of the I don't think it was the storytelling. Like I feel like if we could actually understand the language, we would feel differently.
Mayhaps.
But in any case, I just there is. I'm not gonna like pan this film because I still thought it was a lot of fun to watch. But agree with you. Like when you put it side by side with Kingdom's definitely the winner here. But there was also some fat in Kingdom too. So,
that's fair.
It's a tough thing to do to keep these epic things, like building that tension and keeping it going for the whole of the film. But I like what these guys are doing. I'm totally on board. I'd like to see a lot more choreography, like what was happening. That sword is so badass. Can I have it for my wall? I don't know.
That sword is something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So also another thing in this film is it didn't really ever make it clear actually I guess it did make it clear zombies could be killed in any normal way. Like shoot them in the chest and they die. There was no head decapitation thing happening. And I'm trying to remember, did Kingdom was you had to shoot him in the heart, was it? Or where did they have to, it was head. Was it head too?
Yep.
So,
here they do say head or heart.
They did?
Yep.
Okay. So, when we're talking about Gangnam's sword, it doesn't have like a real point to it. So it's a slashing weapon mostly. So for him to be killing zombies really quick, he must just be exhausted. Because if you're cutting through that much bone and meat every time you have to kill somebody, that's crazy.
Not to mention, that is one hefty sword to be carrying around. Mm-hmm. That thing is not lightweight. It is like a massive chunk of metal. He looks so good carrying it, though.
Yep. A dashing figure, that's for sure. Anyway, so I guess for me, MVP of the movie is that sword. Secondly, it's the choreography. The story to me is a distant third, and Haksu is just terrible, and I wish he hadn't been in the story at all.
Yeah, or I'm okay with him or someone like him being in the story, but they could have done so much more with that character than make him a clown. And I think that took away from a lot of that story for me. And I definitely didn't believe it when the prince was crying when he died.
No, there was no indication that was a two-way relationship.
No.
And you know what? Dutch Zombie also rates higher than Haksu because he like shows up and slays bodies in like 4 or 5 different scenes in the movie. Yes, I think that's it for me. Do you have anything else you want to say about this film?
I do want to say that I was really wondering how they were going to get Ganglam off the roof of the burning building, and they never actually show that. And it's like he's there. There's like, I mean, they show different shots of like that particular building, like all the way up in flames, but yet somehow he's hanging out on the roof, really proud of the people fighting and. And then I was just like, oh, are they just going to like kill him? Because like, there's no way that guy's going to get off that roof. And then the next shot is of him helping out the village. But I like just, that was really distracting for me. So that was the only other thing I had to add.
Maybe, everybody in the entire kingdom of Joseon who showed up at, after the last fight was basically over. Maybe they just made a human ladder and he climbed down.
Maybe. So that's pretty much it. Look, I think it was a fun film to watch. I think you have to go into it and take it with a grain of salt, but I still think it was fun. And I had fun watching it despite some of the plot holes.
Yes. Okay. I also enjoyed elements of it. It was worth the price of admission, which is on Amazon Prime, by the way. It's like what,
right.
$4?
Yeah, something like $4 to rent it. I think it's worth $4.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, do you want to get into what we'll be talking about next time?
Okay, yeah. So next time we're going to WW Deuce and some Nazi zombies with Outposts. Which I've been wanting to see for a long time. I just haven't been able to get my hands on it. And so hopefully come back and join us again. In the meantime, if you want to talk trash about this movie or sing its praises and tell us we're crazy, you can do that at Reanimated PCast on Twitter, reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com, or on our show notes at reanimatedpodcast.com.
And until next time, ciao.
Thanks for listening. Bye.